Well, the resolution passed by the UN General Assembly today is non-binding, and so far diplomatic efforts have not slowed the Russian assaults. Bob Rae is Canada's ambassador to the United Nations. He is with me now. Mr. Rae, good to speak with you. Again, thanks for taking time to speak with me tonight.
Pleasure.
Look, Russia has so far thumbed its nose at sanctions and diplomatic censure. So what difference do you think this vote in the General Assembly today will make?
I think this vote gives us some momentum for the Secretary General to be even more engaged and to know that he has the strong support of the membership of the UN in numbers that are frankly unprecedented. In the modern day UN, where you have 193 countries, to get 141 to agree directly is really quite something. And to see Russia isolated as it is, I think is also quite a substantial reflection of global opinion and of global politics. That has an impact on every country. They might say this has no impact, but I'm sure there are people around President Putin who are saying, look, we really are isolated, plus our economy is going down the
Right.
tube. So there's a lot of things happening. The impact of sanctions, the impact of the resilience of the Ukrainian people and the Ukrainian army, all these things have an impact. And I think this is an additional thing that helps. I don't think it's the be-all and the end-all, but I do think it helps it helps to push things in the right direction.
There's a growing call, as you know, to target Russia's oligarchs, Putin supporters. They are. Joe Biden talked last night about going after yachts and apartments in the United States, all of their holdings. Some of those oligarchs have interests in Canada. What kind of discussions have you had about Canada targeting oligarchs as well?
Well, when you say what kind of discussions have I had, that's really a domestic issue for the cabinet to decide. What I have been saying, both publicly and privately, is keep going and make sure that what we're doing is aligning with what other countries are doing, and keep moving, because I really do think it has an impact, and I think the more we can create a stronger set of rules and laws and approaches against corruption, against the abuse of financial power, against what we call in the UN business illicit financial flows, the lack of transparency of these transactions. These are all things we should be doing anyway. Banks should be doing it, and we should be requiring it of our financial institutions. These things shouldn't be secretive. Even Switzerland is moving on this stuff.
Right.
So I think we need to understand this is the direction of history right now, and we need to be part of it, because we've got to be part of this solution.
How do you think sanctions? I think you've touched on this before, but a lot of people are watching this unfold and wondering what comes next, and some of that is very worrisome. How can sanctions work against a leader who, by most observers' observations, isn't making rational choices?
Well, it's not. I mean, that's another subject which is beyond my expertise at the moment. But I would say that what we need to do is understand the reality that no matter how dictatorial you might be, you do have to listen to people. You can't just ignore the direction of public opinion that's surrounding you, because it's not just public opinion in your own country, it's the public opinion in China. It's the things that the government of China have been saying have been very interesting. They've made it very clear that they want there to be a ceasefire, that they think the parties should pull back, and that means Russia. And they do think that there has to be attention paid to what's happening to civilians. Now, you might say, well, China doesn't do a very good job of that in their own country. That's all well and good. But the fact is they're saying it in this situation. So the notion that somehow President Xi and President Putin are locked at the hip it's not true. China's, I think, very concerned about the level of instability and what this is going to do to the global economy, which is what we're seeing, and how dangerous and difficult it is.
Yeah.
The Russian people will be putting pressure on Mr. Putin because of what's happening to their economy. People are losing their jobs. People are seeing inflation go up dramatically. Sanctions are very painful, and they've been very, very wide and deep and unprecedented. And I think sometimes the mistake we make is thinking that these things are going to have an instant effect. Well, they're not going to have an instant effect, but they are having an impact more quickly than I think a lot of people realized they would. And on things like the value of your currency, what your central bank is able to do, what your stock market is going to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's one way to make oligarchs a little uneasy, to say, well, now you're worth, 30% of what you were worth 5 days ago. They're not very happy with that. And they have, I do think the Russian leadership, you mentioned the irrationality question. I think the Russian leadership, military, political, economic, I think they have a responsibility to think about the direction their country is taking and think long and hard about what this kind of isolation is going to mean for all of them. And I think the path that they're on is one that has to change. And I think that's going to be as significant an impact on President Putin's thinking as anything else.
Let me finish with you on this. How do you think the crisis ends?
Well, I hope it ends in a ceasefire, first of all, and then a difficult and important negotiation, which will be multi-layered and very complex. The difficult thing for the Ukrainians is that the Russians are their neighbors. They're not going to go away. They're going to have to figure out a way to manage this relationship. And the Russians are having to learn, I think, long and hard, that they can't simply dictate every bit of the course of history. If it ends in some other way, if that is to say the Russians and the Ukrainians don't agree and come to a settlement that is brokered by the UN and third parties and others, if that doesn't happen, then I think we're into another very, very difficult period when all of us will be deeply impacted, but in particular where I think the Russians will realize that they're into a long battle, a long war, a difficult war that will be very, very painful for them and will be very costly, and obviously hugely costly for the people of Ukraine. That's what we're trying to get rid of. I mean, the UN was founded to save future generations from the scourge of war. This is an example of the scourge that we've not been able to save this generation from. We have an obligation to do our best to make sure it stops.
All right. Canada's ambassador to the United Nations, Bob Rae. Always good to talk to you. Thanks for your perspective tonight. Take care.
Thanks a lot. Good to talk to you, Peter.
Take care, sir.
Bye-bye now.